Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Grim and Guilty. John Wayne Gacy Jr. was born on March 17, 1942, and raised in a Roman Catholic household in the Midwest. His parents were John Wayne Gacy Sr. and Marian Gacy. Gacy later described his childhood as difficult, particularly due to a strained relationship with his father, who struggled with alcohol and was often physically and emotionally abusive. When Gacy was 11 years old, he suffered a head injury after being struck by a playground swing. The injury caused blackouts for several years before doctors identified and treated a blood clot. Gacy dropped out of high school and spent a short period living in Las Vegas, where he worked at a funeral home. He later returned to Illinois and enrolled at Northwest Business College, graduating in 1963. In 1964, Gacy married Marilyn Myers. Through her family, he became involved in managing several Kentucky Fried Chicken franchises. During this time, Gacy appeared outwardly successful and stable. Him and Marilyn had 2 children together. In 1968, Gacy pleaded guilty to sexually assaulting a teenage boy and was sentenced to 10 years at the Iowa State Men's Reformatory. Although other allegations surfaced, no additional charges were filed. Marilyn filed for divorce during his incarceration, which was finalized in 1969. Gacy did not maintain contact with his former wife or children after his release. Gacy was paroled in 1970 and returned to the Chicago area. In the years that followed, he was arrested twice on sexual assault charges, though both cases were dismissed. With financial help from his mother, Gacy purchased a home in Norwood Park Township. He became active in the community, hosting large gatherings and presenting himself as a friendly, civic-minded neighbor. He also performed as a clown at public events, using the names Pogo and Patches. In 1972, Gacy married Carol Hoff, a former high school acquaintance. During their marriage, she discovered sexually explicit material involving boys and men. The couple divorced in 1976. Authorities believe Gacy's first known murder occurred in 1972. Over the next several years, he murdered at least 33 young men and boys. Investigators later determined that Gacy often lured victims by offering construction work through his business, PDM Contractors. Once they were in his home, he used alcohol, drugs, and restraints to overpower them. Most victims were killed by strangulation or suffocation. In December 1978, 15-year-old Robert Pease disappeared after leaving his job at a pharmacy in Des Plaines, Illinois. Pease told his mother he needed to speak briefly with a contractor about a potential job opportunity. That contractor was John Wayne Gacy. Robert did not return. His family reported him missing. Police quickly learned that Gacy was the last person known to have seen Pease alive. Lieutenant Joseph Kozenak led the investigation and pushed for an in-depth inquiry. Gacy failed to appear for scheduled questioning, raising further suspicion. Investigators later determined that Robert Pease had been killed and his body disposed of in a Des Plaines river.
Okay.
A search warrant was obtained for Gacy's home, where police found evidence that raised serious concerns, including personal identification belonging to other individuals. Former employees reported being instructed to dig trenches and spread lime beneath the house. Under questioning, Gacy claimed he had killed a man in self-defense and buried the body in his garage. Further searches revealed a crawl space beneath the home containing human remains. Ultimately, investigators recovered the bodies of 29 victims from Gacy's property. 4 additional victims, including Robert Pease, were recovered from nearby waterways. Gacy was charged with 33 counts of murder, During his trial in 1980, he pled not guilty by reason of insanity, while defense experts testified that he suffered from severe mental illness. The jury rejected the claim. Gacy was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to death. His house was demolished in 1979. Several unidentified victims were laid to rest in 1981. After years of appeal, John Wayne Gacy was executed by lethal injection in 1994 at Stateville Correctional Center in Illinois. At the time of his death, several of his victims remained unidentified. Today, the case is studied not only for its crimes, but for its failures and warning signs and investigation breakthroughs that ultimately led to Gacy's arrest, making it one of the most significant serial murder cases in American history. Skinwalker Ranch is a remote 512-acre property in northeastern Utah, just south of a small town of Ballard. For decades, the land, formerly known as Sherman Ranch, has been linked to reports of unexplained phenomena ranging from UFO sightings and strange creatures to cattle mutilations and electromagnetic disturbances. While some believe the ranch is a hotspot for paranormal activity, others argue it's a combination of folklore, misinterpretation, and environmental factors. This episode explores the documented history, indigenous context, modern investigations, and the ongoing debate surrounding one of the most controversial properties in the United States. Skinwalker Ranch sits within Utah's Utah Basin, an area known for geological oddities, energy extraction sites, and unusual atmospheric conditions. The ranch spans approximately 512 acres of high desert terrain, dotted with rock formations, ridge lines, and shadow basins. Long before the ranch gained its modern reputation, the land existed within a region shaped by deep indigenous history, particularly involving the Ute and Navajo peoples. The term skinwalker comes from the Navajo folklore and refers to a malevolent witch capable of shape-shifting into animals or other forms. In Navajo belief, skinwalkers are deeply taboo and associated with harm, deception, and spiritual corruption. Historically, the Ute people occupied much of what is now Utah, Colorado, and New Mexico. At one point, the Ute and Navajo tribes were allies. However, after the Ute acquired horses from Spanish settlers, relations deteriorated. Some Ute groups began raiding Navajo communities and selling captives into slave markets in New Mexico. During the mid 1800s, certain Ute bands allied with the U.S. military forces, including Kit Carlson, in campaigns against the Navajo. These actions culminated in the Long Walk of the Navajo, a forced relocation to Fort Summer, New Mexico, during the Civil War era. According to regional lore, the Ute later believed the Navajo placed a curse on them for these betrayals. Over time, stories of skinwalkers became associated with areas of conflict, including the land now known as Skinwalker Ranch. It's important to note that many Navajo elders discourage discussing skinwalkers at all, and modern use of the term is often considered culturally insensitive or inaccurate. Accounts of unusual events in the Unitah Basin reportedly date back centuries, though most early stories came from oral tradition rather than written records. These include large wolf-like creatures resistant to injury, strange lights appearing and disappearing into rock formations or bodies of water, unexplained animal deaths, feelings of being watched or followed. While these stories are difficult to verify historically, they set the foundation for the ranch's modern reputation. The ranch documentation history begins in the 20th century. From 1934 to 1994, it was owned by Kenneth and Edith Myers. 1994 to 1996, it was owned by Terry and Gwen Sherman. From 1996 to 2006, it was owned by billionaire Robert Bigelow. And from 2016 to today, it is owned by Brandon Fugal. The ranch gained international attention during the Sherman ownership period. In 1994, Terry and Gwen Sherman purchased the ranch hoping to raise cattle. Almost immediately, they reported disturbing events. They described seeing large animals resembling wolves, far bigger than any known species in the area. According to the Shermans, one of these creatures attacked a calf and appeared unaffected when shot at close range. They also reported repeated precise cattle mutilations with no blood loss. Crop circles appearing overnight, bright, silent objects in the sky, orbs of light that seemed to track people or vehicles. In one incident, Gwen Sherman reported being followed by a glowing object while driving. In another, Terry claimed to hear male voices speaking an unknown language above him in an open field, causing their dogs to panic. At one point, 7 cattle were either found dead or vanished entirely. In June of 1996, the Shermans spoke to a local reporter about their experiences. Within months, the ranch was purchased by billionaire aerospace entrepreneur Robert Bigelow. Bigelow acquired the ranch in 1996 and established the National Institute for Discovery Science, the NIDS, to study reported phenomena. The NIDS included scientists, military personnel, and intelligence specialists. Among them was Dr. Colm Keller, a biochemist, retired U.S. Marine Colonel John B. Alexander. And according to NIDS researchers, they investigated close to 100 reported incidents, and those included UFO sightings, electromagnetic disturbances, animal mutilations, and reports of invisible forces affecting equipment. On March 12, 1997, Keller claimed to observe a large humanoid figure watching the research team from a tree. Other team members reported seeing shadowy figures and experiencing sudden illness. Despite years of investigation, NIDS published a very little peer-reviewed data. Critics argue that the lack of transparency weakened the credibility of their findings. Skinwalker Ranch later became linked to the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, AATIP, a Pentagon-funded effort to study unidentified aerial phenomena. Some see AATIP's interest as validation that something unusual was happening at the ranch. Others disagree. UFO skeptic Robert Schaefer has argued that AATIP documents related to the Skinwalker Ranch describe speculative science rather than direct evidence of extraterrestrial activity, calling the phenomenon likely illusionary. In 2016, Bigelow sold the ranch to Adamantium Real Estate LLC, owned by Brandon Fugal, for approximately $500,000. Since then, access to the ranch has been tightly restricted. Roads have been blocked, surveillance cameras installed, and barbed wire fencing erected. Today, research operations are coordinated from a centralized command center designed by plasma physicist Eric Bard. The site uses advanced sensors to monitor radiation, electromagnetic fields, aerial activity, and environmental changes. Despite these measures, employees and researchers have reported unexplained illnesses, equipment failures, and unsettling personal experiences, including the ranch's head of security. Skeptics point to several possible explanations: geological effects causing electromagnetic interference, stress and expectation influencing perception, predators or scavengers accounting for animal deaths, atmospheric phenomena misidentified as UFOs. Today, no publicly released evidence has conclusively proven paranormal or extraterrestrial activity at Skinwalker Ranch.